All right. Hello, everybody, and welcome. Hope everybody is doing well tonight. We're going to be doing something very different tonight than we've ever done on stream before, actually. So, um, before we jump into that, though, I do want to just take a quick second just to say thank you to the supporters of the channel, beginning with the partners, who are the highest tier of subscription over on Patreon and YouTube memberships. They are Dustin Punt, Gabby Bashir, and Gerbolis Inc. I'd also like to thank all the other supporters listed here on the screen rather. They are a combination of the other tiers of support over on Patreon, YouTube memberships, as well as Twitch subscriptions. In addition to that, I want to say thank you to all of you who are joining me here live, either on YouTube or Twitch, or simply catching the VOD later on. Thank you guys for being here. Without you guys, this project would not exist. So, speaking of the project, actually, before we get into that, let me catch up with chat real fast. Singy, how's it going? Good to see you. Hello. And Taman, good to see you as well. I'm doing relatively okay, I'll say. Smudge, good to see you as well. So, I have decided to do something a little bit different tonight, just because I've had some things going on, and my brain isn't really in the coding space tonight, right? So, I figured we'd kind of take a step back from the code tonight and do something a little bit different, something we haven't really done before on the channel. And we're just going to kind of go through some ideas for the first game of the first game that we're gonna create and publish using Kohi. And we're gonna go over all the poll results that we have. I've got some ideas pulled up here, and we'll go over all the things that you guys voted on in the polls. And we'll see if we can't come up with some sort of a high concept of the game that we want to create. And then that will be the sort of precursor to a game design document. And what we're going to do with that is we're going to create that whole thing live on stream as well when we get there. So generally speaking, the way that this whole process works is when you want to start a new project, you generally have some sort of idea of what you want to make, at least on a very, very high level. And that's called a high concept. And that's what we're basically going to brainstorm a little bit about tonight. See if we can't come up with some ideas, at least for a high concept. And maybe even start fleshing out some details. But before we do that, we got to come up with an idea first, right? So, had a rough day. Yeah, no. Actually, truth of the matter is, my grandfather passed on Sunday, and it's messing with me a little bit harder than I thought it was going to. And so, yeah, my brain has just not been wanting to do code-related stuff. So I'm like, you know what? I still do want to stream. I still do enjoy streaming. I still enjoy interacting with you guys. It's just instead of coding tonight, I think we'll do this, right? It's something a little bit more relaxed. And I figured also we could have sort of an ad hoc Q&A type of session as well. So, it's more of a discussion type of thing. I guess I should probably put it under just chatting, but I mean, I guess it is kind of game dev related still, so I appreciate that, guys. Thank you. So yeah, that's kind of partially why we're doing this, but also we do need to start thinking about what we want to put together, right? Because we don't want to wait until we actually start scaffolding the project and then going, oh, what features do we need, right? This will help us sort of determine what features we're missing and what we need to add to the engine before we actually start developing the game. So, temple run like game, yeah. So that's one of the ideas that I had, which is I just have it up here on the screen. It's nothing final, obviously, right? This was one idea that I had. This is kind of what I've been kicking around in my head for like a casual game. So what we're looking for here is something that's relatively simple, right? I don't want something that's like going to take me 3 years to develop, right? I want to keep it simple. I want to keep it small. but still fun, and ultimately a reasonable example of something that we could publish on the major gaming platforms. So we want to publish this on at a minimum itch and probably Steam as well. Maybe the Epic Store. I don't know about that yet. I haven't really looked into it. But yeah, the goal is to make something to just have a very simple product to sort of test the engine, run it through its courses, and use that as sort of our template to figure out all the steps that we need to do to actually publish a game using the engine. Genshin Impact, yeah, that's absolutely gigantic. There's no way that's happening. MMOs are definitely off the table. In fact, I would say any type of RPG is off the table. Those are way too complicated. Yeah, why don't we just make a WoW killer while we're at it, Yeah. Yeah, any sort of... In fact, I'm going to say probably multiplayer games in general are going to be off the table, right? So there's a few things that I definitely don't want to do, just because they add a lot of complexity and a lot of stuff that we don't have, and stuff that I don't necessarily want to write to get our first game out the door. So the first thing is no networking of any kind. We don't have it in the game engine yet, and it's not something that I want to jam in there really quickly. I want to think about it thoroughly before putting it in. So we're not going to have anything networking driven. We're not going to do an RPG because it's just scale wise, it's huge. We're not going to make like a GTA clone or anything like that. Again, we want to keep this very small. We don't want to make anything that's like super hyper realistic either, right? Because I don't want to spend the next 2 years making assets either. I want to keep it sort of like a light cartoony type of feel with maybe some fancy lighting and that kind of stuff, but nothing too crazy. Yeah, that's kind of the general idea. And so one of the first ideas I had was this. So we'll kind of step through some of the other things that you guys brought up. So let's see. Let me hop over to the Discord thread. I wonder if I can pop this thread out by chance. I don't think you can. All right. So I guess I'll go to the top here. So basically there was this, let's see. Give me 1 second to collapse some of this stuff here. Bear with me just 1 second. Okay. All right, so what we did, you'd probably need to shrink this down a little bit, is we had a poll on the Discord server. And that was... oops, I was already in it, I guess. That was here. Here we go. So what is your preference on the first game made with Kohi, right? And you guys overwhelmingly said small arcade-style game, but in 3D. So I don't want to do a 2D game either, right? This is a 3D engine. I want to keep it 3D. So we're going to do that. And then we had this thread in here where we could start talking about the first idea. So somebody said Angry Birds with really bad physics. Angry Birds might be something that we could do minus physics or something. Physics, we don't really have a physics engine, right? So we need to think about if we want to introduce that now, which will obviously push the game back, or if we want to maybe do something that isn't physics-based. For example, the Infinite Runner would not be physics-based. And so, let's see. Angry Birds with no physics, it would be Calm Birds, right? Let's see. First person Doom-like but 3D was another idea. That's not really an arcade game though. So I mean, doing like a first person shooter, those tend to be pretty involved as well. Doesn't mean we can't do it, but we'd have to really think about it, right? Let's see. discussion about 3D versus 2.5D. Super simple game could be an Angry Birds, but all the birds fly in a straight line and disappear when they hit things. A step above that could be a step above that could be a simple FPS. Oh, okay, all right. So things like that are kind of something that we could do. Arcade style 3D platformer where you can explore different environments. You can test many graphics features like fog, water, instancing, wind if it's available. So something like that could be interesting. Again, physics, question mark. We might be able to do a arcade style platformer without physics, maybe. 3D Cuphead was another example brought up. So for those of you who aren't familiar, this is kind of what that game looks like, right? It's kind of got that 1950s sort of animation style. This is pretty 2D though, right? This is pretty 2D styling. So like, I love the styling of this, but I don't know how that would translate to 3D. So that's something to think about as well. It's got to be some sort of style that's going to translate well to 3D. And so my only hesitation with this is, if we were to do something in this style, that might not translate so well to 3D. Nothing says we have to do that style though. We could basically, take the basic idea of the game and build off of that too. N++ is a really cool game. I'm not familiar with that one. Let me pull that up. Oh, okay. So that looks like this, which looks like I'm guessing it's like a 2D platformer type of deal. Actually, it looks like it's kind of a few different things. Looks like there's a top-down perspective here, and then there's a side perspective here. So that's an interesting thing. We could mix and match different styles of games together, right? That's another thing. Dr. Elliott, how's it going? Good to see you. Widgeler, it's good to see you as well. We'll be doing Elder Scrolls 6. Very funny. Based on the 30-second clip they showed almost 10 years ago. That's very funny. Yeah, I know there was a running joke of, making Grand Theft Auto 6 before they released Grand Theft Auto 6. That would be pretty funny, but I'm one dude, so unfortunately I can't do that quickly. Okay, so what about an isometric bullet hell shooter-like? That was another idea that I had. Although the isometric is an interesting twist. I was thinking about a bullet hell game might be really interesting to make. Most of those are top down, but the isometric thing actually is kind of interesting. So you're thinking almost like a Diablo style bullet hell type of game. That's kind of interesting. I don't mind that. That could be interesting. Yeah. Okay. I'll keep that one in mind. Kohi only has a 3D world. So Kohi can do either 2D or 3D, but since it does support 3D, I want to make a 3D game, right? We could do a 2D game, but I feel like that's all the stuff that we've written in the engine. It'd be kind of a waste to do a 2D game. Pac-Man like game. Roman collecting coffee beans. I'll be the bean collector. Yeah, that's funny. So you have Ratchet and Clank in the tabs. Yes, because that was another thing that kept coming up. So let's see, where did the Discord go? Right. So I'll finish kind of going through this, and that was one thing that came up a few times. Let's see. Coffee themed game would be nice. So that would be kind of an interesting one, right? Like, maybe that's thinking like a cozy style game or something like that. So that's another direction we could go. It doesn't necessarily have to be like an action arcade type of thing. We could also go completely different and go to like a cozy type of game, right? Where like maybe you're running a coffee shop or something. Um, let's see. Voted for simple 3D arcade game, so all my ideas go there. Yep, okay. Crappy Angry Birds. Quake clone with lousy assets, arcade. 1D Pac-Man, big game. That's very funny. Let's see. So one question was in here, if the game's going to be 3D, don't we need some sort of animation system? We are going to need that, right? Potentially, depending on the actual art style of the game, we could get around maybe not having one. So that's something that we could discuss one way or the other. Animation systems can start off pretty simple. I think we could get a simple one up and running without too much effort. But having something that's more advanced, that takes physics into account and stuff like that might get a little bit more involved. So we definitely don't want to do something like that, but a simple animation system we could probably put in, right? Let's see. Spyro or Crash style early platform. Collectathon is one of the primary votes. Yes. So Spyro was another one that I had in here, right? And I think all of these are mostly the newer ones. The only Spyro game that I ever actually played was the PlayStation 1 version, right? Which looks like this might actually be it here. So yeah, I would have to do a little bit of research on like any of the newer ones, right? But I did like that game a long time ago. So there was let's see. So there's that. Spyro, but with a gun was another one. But then it kind of came out later on. Just realized it's Ratchet and Clank. So Spyro with a gun is basically Ratchet and Clank, which is not wrong, right? So that's another direction that we could go. So here's an example of that. If we were to do a Ratchet and Clank style game, it would probably be the old school ones that we would model after. It probably would not be the new ones, right? Just because the new ones kind of involve a lot of advanced stuff that we're not going to actually have in the engine yet. So we want to keep the scale of this small. We don't want to go crazy with the features, right? We would probably go with an older Ratchet and Clank if we were to go that direction. So that would be a lot of fun to make, potentially. The only thing there is we may need some light physics. We might be able to do sort of like a walking simulator type of hack in terms of, how you navigate around the world. And probably we'd wind up doing that for any platformer that we made. But yeah, that's kind of the thing there. Sly Cooper is another one. Yeah. Yep. Thank you for the follow, by the way. It's your favorite game? Nice. Yeah, I played the old ones a lot back in the day. Could be a survivor game like Vampire Survivor. Yes, that is another option. And it might be interesting to do some sort of a neat twist on a survivor game that hasn't really been done before. So like zombies have been done to death, right? Vampire Survivor is kind of its own thing. Like that's kind of, I wouldn't necessarily want to copy that idea, but like a survival game would be kind of interesting to do. Something that is maybe top down or again maybe isometric, right? Taking the idea from before, where you have an isometric bullet hell. Well, maybe we also have that as a survival type of game, right? Or maybe we have those two ideas are maybe two different gameplay modes of the same game, something like that. So that's an idea. This one here, Spyro, but it's Ratchet and Clank, but he's a drug dealer in Portland, Oregon. So that's like mixing with a little Grand Theft Auto there. That's probably going to be too big. Florida Man Spyro with guns. So as you can see, the ideas are sort of getting crazier and crazier as we go on. But yeah, a Florida Man style game might be funny to do. Um, and I think that's pretty much all that's in here. Oh, nope, there is one more. Not sure if anybody has mentioned tower defense games yet, but a 3D tower defense game could be fun to explore. So, I think building a tower defense game would be super fun. However, there's a strong caveat to this. There are several people, even on Twitch, making those already, right? TCAP's making one. Cakes is making one, right? There's like the tower defense thing is kind of being done to death at the moment. So I might put that in my back pocket for like another game in the future, because I do like tower defense games, but I kind of don't want to make another one, right? I feel like I've seen a lot of them on Twitch lately about people making those, and I think there's enough of them being made right now. I don't feel like me making another one is gonna really do much for the market there. Freescape style games, but modernized, could be a bit original by today's standards. So let's look that up real quick. So are we talking... Are we talking this kind of a thing? When you say Freescape, I assume this is what you mean. Let me put this here. So yeah, this is definitely something that modernized, obviously, could be interesting to do. Tower defense would be great after the engine matures a little. Yeah, I mean, so thinking about it, actually, I don't think we would need to add much of anything. Well, okay, there's two things that I can think of off the top of my head that we'd have to add for a tower defense game. One, we don't have particle support yet. We need that. We're probably going to have to add that no matter what we do. And then two, potentially, we would need an animation system. But, we could maybe hack around not having one in the game code. Castle Master, Driller, Total Eclipse. Yeah. Let's see. I think... Let's look up Total Eclipse, because I vaguely remember that one. $3DO. Jeez. Brings back some memories. Concord-like game. I think an endless runner or a coffee house simulator would be great. Yeah. Yeah, so those are like diametrically opposed, right? But like they're both great ideas, I think. It was Amiga, not 3DO. Oh, I just happened to see this here. Let's see. I never had an Amiga. Oh, here we go. That looks like it right there. I don't want to pull up the actual video because I don't want like to get DMCA'd or something like that. But yeah, I get the general idea. So that could be something that we could just, sort of explore as well. Let's see. Would love a Florida Man game. Awesome. Yeah, I mean, that'd be a funny. At a minimum, it'd be funny to build an Easter egg in there about that. What genre of games do you want to make? So, eventually, well, okay, I don't want to say too much about this yet, but so the first game I want to make something very simple just to sort of test the engine, right? And I mean at the very basic level. The large project that I have in mind for after that is something that's very involved and is likely going to involve a lot of changes to the engine regardless, right? Or feature additions. So, ultimately I'm thinking like an open world, I guess you could call it an open world action RPG is what I'm thinking. It's a little more complicated than that, but that's more or less what I'm thinking for the large project. But we're obviously not there yet, right? We're still in the infancy of the project because of where the engine's at. But what I want to do is release something small but something 3D, using the engine so that we get something out there on the engine. We go through the process of actually building a game from start to finish, including making the design document and all that stuff, and all the assets and all that stuff, right on up through to releasing it on Steam. The reason I want to do that is because we've been building this game engine for a while, and part of obviously game development is actually building a game on top of that, right? So I do want to show that total process, because I know that I won't be able to show that on the large game. The large game is going to require lots of off-camera work. I'm not going to be able to do all of it on camera. It will never be done. But a smaller project, we could do that way. So I want to do something that is not like physics intensive, something that's has decent replay value, something that's kind of arcadey, something that's relatively simple to play, simple to make. That's not going to take 3 years, in other words. So I'm thinking like arcade style game, or the sort of diametrically opposed option, which would be like a coffee shop simulator or something like that. Open world action RPG sounds awesome. Yeah, I have plans for that one. I've actually I've started kicking off the game document for that one. Actually, I've got a high concept and everything. It's just I'm nowhere near ready to talk about it yet. But the precursor to that is we've got to get something small and simple made first, so that we can work out a lot of the initial issues that we're going to run into with the engine before we get to the point of actually making a large game. Let's see. Simple off-road game. So when you say off-road game, do you mean like a driving game? Like off-roading in that manner? Because, I mean, that could be interesting. The problem is that's kind of physics heavy, right? Which is, we don't have a physics engine yet. So I'm not so sure that I want to go that direction, if that's what you mean. Although that could be a feature that I could put into a feature game, for sure. Card game. So, okay, card game's pretty open, right? That could mean a lot of things. Obviously, I don't want to make like a poker game or something like that, but like, do you mean like a trading card game similar to like, I don't know, Hearthstone or something like that? Is that what you mean? Because that could be another interesting thing that we make. I mean, that's mostly 2D. Well, Hearthstone is 3D, but it doesn't really utilize a lot of the 3D. That is what you mean. Okay. All right. So that could be interesting. I've not played a lot of those. So it would be interesting to come up with all the different cards and balance it and all that kind of stuff. The only drawback that I see to that is I don't want to do networking because we don't have networking yet. So it wouldn't be multiplayer, so having a single player card game might be a bit of a challenge to make interesting, right? That's the only thing there. Let's see. Set aside this live stream series as something to follow along for a future project. Do I take the title of this stream to mean that the engine's development is complete? No, it is not. So what we are doing is, just for various reasons, my brain is not in code mode today. So I figured we'd take a step back and start thinking about what kind of game we want to make with the engine. Because what that's going to do is that's also going to tell us basically a feature list of things that we need to add to the engine before we can actually start it. And then from there, we'll have an exact to-do list that we need to get to actually build the game and release it. So Tonight is really just about brainstorming and trying to land on an idea of something that we want to make. And then once we make a decision on what we want to make, we're going to write up a high concept, and then we're going to make a game design document from scratch, because that's an important part of the process too. And then, we'll actually start getting to work on it. So tonight's stream is mostly about just kind of coming up with that high concept. Speaking of where the engine's at, are you continuing the resource system today? So not today, but we are continuing. Yeah. Potentially on the next stream. Depends on how far we get with this today. I'm stepping back from the code just for a week, just because I've had kind of a rough week, and my brain isn't all there in terms of coding. So it should be coffee related to stay on brand. Yeah, I don't disagree. I do like the idea of a coffee-based game. All right. First time chat. Iaria? I hope I pronounced that right. Welcome. What are you brainstorming? So we are brainstorming our first game. So we've got a whole bunch of tabs here with just different options or different things we've kind of talked about on the Discord server. In here, about what maybe the first game will be, and we're just trying to sort of narrow that down a little bit. It's Aria. Okay. The two I's at the beginning threw me off. Did I choose a genre? Yeah. Nope. So, we kind of have two potential directions we can go. We can go with like an arcade style game, or we can go with like a cozy, like coffee house simulator type of game. Okay, I get it. Yeah, I've done that with names and stuff too, for sure. But yeah, so I know those two ideas are like opposed, right? But they're pretty good ideas, I think. Let's see. Lou the Coder, I just realized I think I've been seeing your videos lately on YouTube actually. They're pretty good. Have you seen Tiny Glade? They have some really cool procedural mechanics. Will that be overkill to go procedural direction for the first game? Let me take a look. Tiny Glade. Procedural might be a fun thing to do. Let me pull that up real fast. Pull this down here. I like the style. I guess we could look at the trailer, but I don't want to like. I'm not going to play it with sound though, because I don't want to get like copyright, Oh, I remember seeing a tech demo for this like a long time ago. Yeah, so this kind of stuff is super interesting. So is this? I only remember the tech demo portion of it though. I don't remember what the actual gameplay is. Is it like a Is it like a base building type of game? Yeah, it looks really good though. I remember seeing this. It feels like a few years ago now at this point. I think it was like, I want to say they were demoing it in Unity as they were developing it. I think I saw it on Twitter. Yeah, it's pretty cool stuff. Yeah, I'm not watching that, whatever that is. All right. So yeah, that could be. So procedural stuff is interesting, right? What would we use that for, though? 30-minute village builds. So, okay, so a city builder might be, or city slash village builder might be a little bit large in terms of scope for the first game, I'm thinking. I do like the idea, though. I just wonder how... I feel like the scope of that might get a little bit crazy for what we're trying to do for the first game. Maybe you should do a coffee farming game. You mean like coffee bean farming? Like, what's the name of the game? Like Stardew Valley, but for coffee. And make it in 3D instead. That might get a little bit large too. Let's see. What's Kohi engine? Never heard of it. So Kohi is the engine that we have developed here on stream. It's in the middle of a refactor in terms of its resource system right now, but it's a game engine that we built from scratch that uses Vulkan as its rendering API backend. And yeah, we built the whole thing from the ground up. So that's what we're talking about now is we're trying to decide what direction we want to take the first game in for that and actually release a game using the engine. So the reason I'm starting this now is because we need to start thinking about it so that we've got like a feature list so that we have a direction to go so that I'm not just like ad hoc adding stuff that we might not even wind up using, right? I hope that makes sense. If you want procedural dynamic, look at Little Big Planet. Yeah, well, I mean, that's, yeah. Little Big Planet is a whole world of its own. Definitely way more complicated than I'm wanting to make for the first game, for sure. I played the crap out of that out of the first one when it first came out. Are we going 2D or 3D? So we have a 3D engine, so that's what we're going to be doing is 3D. Yeah. We could do 2D, but 2D would be kind of a waste, I feel like. So we're going to go 3D. Coffee bean farming. Stardew Valley or Homegrown. Homegrown is 3D. If you haven't heard of it, it is being developed by a YouTuber named Thin Matrix. Oh, is that the name of it? Okay. I didn't know he had actually named it. That's right. Yes. I do check in on his channel every once in a while. Let's see. Oh, that's probably... Let me do images. Is this it? I don't know. No, that's something else. His, I thought, looked a little bit more like that. I don't know. Yeah, I know he was making like almost like a farming simulator. Yeah, I mean, that could be interesting to make too. That's not necessarily... I mean, that definitely doesn't require any fanciness like physics. Yeah. Yeah, so he is here. Yeah, this is it. This is what I recognize here. Yeah, so that might be something along those lines might be interesting to make. But again, though, I wouldn't want to copy like what he's doing, right? That's what I want to avoid doing. Definitely is I don't want to like copy something that somebody else is already doing. But yeah, something in that style would be feasible, I think. Just do it coffee based, yeah. So, I guess then like what would go into I guess we'd have to do a little bit of research on like coffee bean farming, right? Um, and how could we gamify that? Because we would have the farming aspect of it, but then you also have the shop aspect of it too, right? You could sell your coffee beans to some coffee shops to get money to expand your coffee farm. Yep, that's true. Um, and or you could probably, well, let's think. You would probably want to have, you'd start off selling just the regular beans, right? And then you'd probably have, eventually you'd want to set up like a plant where you could like roast your beans and then sell them like roasted, which you'd probably get more money for. And then maybe start like a coffee shop as well, as well as like selling them to third party. Yeah. Could also get equipment to make coffee based products. Yeah, that's true too. Um, and make your own coffee shop. Yeah. So that could be interesting for sure. The only thing we have to think about is, how to extend that gameplay. So we'd have to figure out a core gameplay loop for that, which is the real part that I haven't figured out yet. Can have a character who relies on coffee for power-ups to destroy enemies, like a bullet hell style game. Maybe it's like a bullet hell style game where like you have where the main character is like sleep deprived and he's trying to get to some point to to be able to sleep, but he has to use coffee in order to keep him awake. And he's just like slamming espresso shots like crazy. Let's see. Make a third-person and first-person shooter example, something to show off the engine's graphics and physics. So the physics we don't have yet is the thing, which I'm not saying we can't make it, but it's like, do we make that for the first game or not? Do we? Eventually, we are going to have to do it, right? But that's going to be quite an undertaking. So the question is, do we make something that's a little bit simpler that doesn't require that we can just release to get a game out, and then add physics in version 2 or something like that? Because I do agree, like an FPS or even I guess you'd call it a TPS for third person shooter would be interesting. Plant harvest, sell, plant, but the more you play, the more ways you get to process the coffee beans. Yeah. Shooting game like R-Type Final. Let me look that one up. All kinds of ideas. Definitely keep it coming, because we should eventually land on something, right? Let's see. Gameplay I'm probably going to want. Oh, okay. So this is like a space shooter type of game, it looks like. That could be cool to make too. And that would be doable, totally doable without physics. 100%. And we could even make it look kind of like this, where it's, actually has 3D backgrounds and stuff like that. We could make that work. Okay. I don't hate that idea either. Let's see. Not full Little Big Planet clone, but like 2.5D platformer with physics. Yeah, I mean, so if I were to do a 2.5D platformer, I could probably get away with not doing physics on that, in theory. Automation game or card game. If you want to show off the people, or if the power. Wait, blah. Let me reread that. Automation game or card game if you want to show off power of the engine to attract people. Okay. So what do you mean by automation game? Automation. Do you mean like a Satisfactory or something like that? Or Pal World, I guess, has some automation in it. Is that what you mean? Factoria? Yeah. Okay. Okay. Yeah. Okay. I guess, that could be interesting to make. I'm just trying to think about all the ways that we could, or that we would have to keep scope from exploding on that, though. Because I could see that getting pretty complicated pretty quickly in terms of scope. Want to do a coffee game, so coffee plant automation game. That's an interesting combination of ideas. Are you looking for 2D or 3D ideas? 3D. Yep. But we want to keep it super, super simple. So I want to stay away from like 3D physics-based games for now. Just because, well, A, we don't have a physics engine, and B, I'm trying to avoid writing one before we publish our first game, if we can get away with that. 2.5D strategy game that takes place on a desert island. Something like virtual villagers. Idea would be to just set up a factory that produces coffee cups. I see what you mean. So, So that could be interesting too. Hard to do 3D without physics. Not necessarily though, right? Like, so you could make a platformer without physics, actually. So what you would do is you would essentially have, it's a bit like, I guess you could say like the God of War games, for example, right? Don't really need physics if you really study them. What they have is they have a plane that you essentially move around on. You're kind of bound to that, right? And then you go over to like the edge of it and you click and you like jump to another one, or you climb a ladder or something like that, and that takes you to another platform that you're then bound to. And yes, you can jump, but you're not really jumping, and there's not really physics behind it, right? You're really just sliding around on a platform. And so, yeah, I think like a game like that you could probably get away with doing without any physics whatsoever. It's all just animation based and like how you move around. So I definitely think that's, it's possible for sure. Something like an infinite runner, right? Which is here. Something like a game like this, where you're sort of on rails and you can move back and forth between lanes and jump over stuff or duck under things. That doesn't require physics either. Yeah, you could do a hack and slash too. Yep, that would be another example. Yeah, or even a game like a Diablo clone, right? If we were to do a Diablo clone or a Diablo style game, you don't necessarily need physics for that. You can get around it. So the initial idea that I had was something, kind of like these guys, right? Not necessarily in terms of style, but in terms of how they actually work. Let's see. After losing, you could upgrade your stats in an endless runner. After losing or after winning? Hack and slash or Diablo style will get overscoped very soon. Yes, I agree with that. Yeah, I wouldn't necessarily do that. It's a cool idea, but yeah, you're absolutely right. It would get so blown out in terms of scope. Endless runners are so oversaturated in the market. Yeah, I know. That's the thing. It's like if we were to do that, we'd have to come up with something unique. Or how some racing games are spline based and do not use physics. Yeah, racing games is actually another one. In fact, that was one thing I was kind of thinking of is like, well, what if we have like a vehicle based infinite runner? Slash endless runner, whatever you want to call it. You know, instead of literally a person running, like what if it was vehicle based? That might be interesting. Where you have maybe it starts off as a vehicle on the ground, and then you have a flying vehicle, and you can there's different layers or different lanes side to side, but there's also layers up and down that you have to do as well. I don't know if that's a thing or if somebody's already done that, because I know like some of these things you have like obstacles to jump over, right? But I don't know that there's any out there that are just like you're flying along and there's like maybe 3 layers wide and like 5 layers tall or something like that. But yeah, I would agree, like it would be something that we'd have to find a unique thing to add to it to make it different than what's already out there. Is there a win in an endless runner? That's true. Yeah. I mean, it's a bit like Angry Birds, I guess, right? Or not Angry Birds, Flappy Bird. After losing, you can't win an endless runner. Maybe it's a coffee track on the road. Car endless runner. Yeah. The car game was in black and white. It was a mobile game on old Nokia phones. I'm not sure which one you're talking about, but that sounds interesting. See if I can find it. Let's see. The chances of me being able to find this are probably slim and none. Yeah, I don't think so. I don't think I'm going to be able to find that. Just make a Bordy clone. Let's pull that up. Let's see. Chained Together is a nice variation of an endless runner. I'm not familiar with that one. Let's see. What is... So this is the one I'm assuming you're talking about. I wonder what... I'm not going to watch this whole thing, obviously, but... Oh, yeah, this is multiplayer, though. Okay, but it looks like you still have to... So is the idea that you have to just keep running, but like you're chained to other people? And if one person goes down, you all go down, I guess. Interesting. If we were doing networked play, I would agree. That is an interesting variation on it, though. I hadn't heard of this one, so that is interesting. Um, you're also making a game, so these ideas will stir up ideas for me too. Yeah, awesome. Um, Instead of going forwards, you climb from hell up to heaven. That's an interesting concept. Manage your gladiator game. Nice. In this case, is more about the concept of going up instead of forwards. Yeah, so this looks like your typical, almost more like a. This is more of a platformer than an infinite runner, I would say. It's a bit like what Only Up was trying to do with stolen assets. You know, like these assets I'm saying are not stolen. The Only Up ones were. Let's see. Suppose you were planning on testing every aspect of the game engine with the big game, like UI, sound, graphics, and performance. If so, then I believe a game that can spawn an increasing amount of entities per wave and have some other elements that can put strain on the engine, but simple enough to complete. So, yeah, I mean, this first one isn't really designed to be a stress test of the game engine per se. Um, it's more so. It's more so to be basically to just work out bugs and work out design issues and work out that kind of stuff in the beginning. So I wouldn't say it's really meant to stress test it. The big game will definitely do that, but for this little one, we definitely don't need to do that. Okay, so yeah, so it's supposed to be just something simple so that we can actually just take something all the way through to release. So let's see. We have Cuphead. I don't think this is going to be viable. Only because this is 2D, and I don't see how that would translate to 3D. Gameplay wise, also, all of these levels are very, very different with very, very different mechanics. And I see that becoming a scale issue in terms of like scope, like scope creep. So I think we can X that one. Simple top-down zombie shooter. Everybody loves zombies universally. And it's funny because I was saying like zombies are kind of overdone, right? But like maybe not. Odd Oculus with a raid of 30 viewers. Welcome. Thank you so much for the raid. How are you doing tonight? What'd you get up to on stream? Welcome, raiders. Level blocking, nice. Yeah, so we're actually we are doing something a little bit different here tonight than we normally have done. In fact, we've not ever done this before on stream. Instead of writing code, we're actually trying to pick a direction for our first game, and we're working our way to a high concept, and then we'll start working on a game design document. And the whole idea here is that we are essentially gathering a list of features that we need to make or get into the game engine before we can actually make the game. So we're trying to make something that's small, maybe arcadey, something like that, as the first game for our game engine to actually be used for, and we're going to take that all the way to release. So that's what we're doing tonight. Is we're just kind of brainstorming for ideas and kind of coming up with something to make. So if any of you guys have any ideas on what might be a neat but simple, relatively quick game to make, that would be cool. It looks like we have an ad break now, which is really terrible timing. But yeah, I'll jump back to the discussion as soon as ads are over, I guess. But yeah, that's more or less the what we're doing. Um, in terms of the engine itself, the engine that we're building is called the Kohi game engine. So it's a game engine that we're building in C from scratch using Vulkan as our initial rendering backend. And it is completely free and open source. And so this is the engine that we've been building now for a little bit, and we're going to be starting our first game on it here shortly. As soon as we kind of come up with an idea of what we want to make and what features we need to get into the engine before we could start making that, and go from there. So that's kind of what we're doing. What about a roguelike like Windbound? Roguelike, again, that might be a scope issue, right? Because, like, ideally, what I would like to do is keep the development time of this game under a year. That's funny you say that. Booyah is saying Infinite Runner is my go-to quickie game, back from ads. And so, yeah, that's actually what we were actually just talking about that, about making an Infinite Runner. The only thing is like, they are super simple to make, but the market is friggin' saturated with them. So I'd like to come up with something that's semi-unique, but then again, like, this doesn't have to be a blockbuster seller, right? In fact, I don't even know if I'm going to put a price in the game. It's literally just to exercise our engine and take it all the way to release, right? So yeah, thank you for the follow, by the way. But yeah, that was my initial idea too, was an endless runner, because that would be relatively simple to make, and it doesn't require a physics engine that we don't have, and it doesn't require networking. Infinite Runner used to be one of the startup projects in Unreal to demonstrate its cross-platform capabilities. I didn't realize that. That's interesting. Okay. So, yeah, I mean, it's a relatively simple concept, right? And I was even thinking we could take it one step further and maybe, instead of just having your typical 3 lanes like you have here, or in this case, and you've got trains or whatever, for this, maybe we also have later levels that take verticality into account as well. So instead of just jumping over a single object, maybe we have, like a flying spaceship or something that can go up and down channels as well as left to right. And so you might have, something where you have to, dodge a whole bunch of stuff by going all the way up here, and then you'll have to go all the way down here to dodge the next thing, so to speak. And that might be kind of interesting to make. It would be a little bit more unique than, just kind of throwing something out there that is just kind of a copy of what's already out there. But again, like, it's something to exercise the engine. It's not something that I'm looking to, like, make millions of dollars off of, right? And sell for lots of money. I probably won't even sell it for anything. I'll probably just make it for free. So that's the goal, anyways. Endless Runner hack and slash. You know what? That's actually not a terrible idea. That actually just gave me an idea. So let me pull something up. Let me see. Let me find it first. I think you might have actually just stumbled onto what I might wind up making, actually. So I don't know who out there in the audience remembers the original version of the Final Fantasy VII motorcycle scene, where you're sort of escaping Midgar and you have all these baddies that are chasing you, right? And you have essentially 3 lanes that you can stay in, and they can come up beside you and, like, hit you and stuff, and you've got, like, a club that you can swing at them. And so this is, like, the newer version of that, right? But that might be an interesting thing, like a combat endless runner. Like, what if we made that into like a full game? That is money, I think. Right? And then if we expanded that to be not only like a motorcycle in the beginning, but like if we expanded that into flying vehicles in the end, right? That might also be something. And theoretically, we could probably also find a way to work in bullet hell to that, into that idea. So, like, for example, maybe we would have a level that starts off something like this, right, where you're just kind of going in one plane, right, and back and forth, and then maybe the camera, because we're in 3D, goes from behind the player to up and over the player looking down, and then a bullet hell thing starts, and you have to like dodge the bullets, staying in those same lanes, using the same controls that you were from the other camera angle, but now the camera angle's different. Maybe something like that would be interesting. Throw in a kick-ass soundtrack and you're set. I think this is money. I think this is the idea. Because I remember thinking that this was, when I played this, the original version back in 1997, I remember thinking, why isn't there a full game like this? And actually, there was a full game like this. What was it called? I think it was... Yes, this was it. Road Rash 3D. It was a PlayStation 1 game. Where they actually took this game, they took that idea and kind of made a whole game out of it. And I think you were using like baseball bats and stuff here, and you were basically a biker. And you could just hit people with bats and stuff. Even Full Throttle had a version of it. Yeah, I think this would be a lot of fun to make, actually. No physics required, right? You're on rails the entire time. So as you follow around the track, right, you're going around corners and stuff, but you really all you do is just change lanes. When you enter your ship, the bullet hell starts. Yeah, maybe, right? Or it might be able to, use the camera to like switch back and forth between modes. Can we kick Florida Man then? Yeah, I mean, maybe Florida Man's a boss, right? Maybe Florida Man's a boss, and he's got like alligators strapped to his arms or something. Something ridiculous. But what's the fun of beating other bikers over in the head if they don't ragdoll as a result? You're not completely wrong. You're not completely wrong. Let's see. You know what? Kuju is actually wanting to collaborate. I'm not sure how that works, so I'm going to hit accept and see how that works. Let's see. How does this work? Oh, you are there. Okay. Hang on one second. Yes, I can hear you. Can you hear me? I don't know that you're going to be able to hear me, though. You can't hear me? Oh, you know what? I think... Yeah, I think... Give me one second. I think I need to do this from my other machine. Okay, that works. I can hear... Oh, yeah, it did. Okay. Yeah, I can hear you on my desktop, but I can't hear you, like, through... Okay. All right, cool. That works. All right, cool. Thanks for the raid. All right. So I don't think you guys could hear all of the audio there, but we were trying the stream together thing. But the problem is I opened it on my desktop, which is not what I'm streaming from. I'm streaming from my Mac, and I think I needed to open it from there to get that to work correctly. But I didn't realize how that feature worked. So, welcome, Raiders. How's everybody doing tonight? Wonder what the actual purpose of that feature is. I think it's so that you can like. It's kind of like streaming Discord, like a Discord call, I think. But yeah, I've never actually tried it before that. So I think next time if we try it again, I'll open it on the machine that has OBS on it, and that'll probably work. Because I don't know if the I don't think the stream could hear you. I think only I could hear you because it was open on my desktop. So, but thank you for the raid. Quick shout out to Cujo. Oh, it looks like I already did it. Okay, so he is working on a game called Fat Goblins, which if you haven't checked that out, I highly recommend you do so. In fact, let me do this. So this is his game. I will drop this in chat. You guys should definitely check that out. It's looking really good. How's your game coming along, by the way? This is Kuju's game. So he just raided us a minute ago. So that's the game that he's working on. It's written in Jai, and it's looking really good. Yeah. So definitely make sure to wish list that for sure. Okay, so Raiders, what we are doing tonight is we are talking about some ideas for the first game that we're going to make using our engine. And we wanted to keep it kind of simple, but make something that would be, fun with replay value and all that kind of stuff. But the idea is that we want to sort of run the game engine that we've been developing through its courses and be able to test our features and take it all the way from the design phase through creating a game document, writing the features we need, making the assets, all that stuff, all the way to releasing it on itch and probably Steam. And so that is kind of what we're doing tonight, is kind of trying to come up with an idea so that we can come up with a high concept, which is sort of the precursor to a game design document. And so we want to step through this whole process on stream. And so what we're using as our tech stack, if you will, is our game engine called Kohi. So it's a engine that is written in C using Vulkan as its initial rendering backend. We are actually in the middle of a refactor on this, but I decided to kind of take a break from that and sort of step away from that just for tonight, maybe tomorrow night, and talk about this instead so that we can kind of get a list of features that we need to have in the engine to be able to start the game, right? So the engine itself is open source and free, so it's available on GitHub. In fact, I'll drop a link there in chat. And so it is Apache 2.0 license, which means if you want to use it, you're free to use it for personal projects or commercial projects, does not matter. All that I ask is that you say that you used it, and that's literally it. There's not going to be any sort of royalties or licensing fees or anything of that nature ever. It's always going to be free and open source. And the idea is that it's an educational series on a way to build a game engine. It's not necessarily the only way to build a game engine. It's not even necessarily always the right way to build a game engine. We try a lot of different things. We do a lot of trial and error on here. And we dig into reasons why things work and why they don't work. And sometimes, we wind up having to refactor stuff. So we are doing that, kind of around what we're doing tonight. But I decided to take a break on that and talk about something else instead. So that is the engine that we're using. And the idea that we kind of eventually stumbled across was we could make something kind of like in the original Final Fantasy, and of course the remake had this too, The motorcycle game, which is a bit like an endless runner, right? Except you're on a motorcycle. Except that there's enemies that can come up to your side. And you can like hit them with a baseball bat or a sword or something like that to battle them, or maybe you could shoot ones that are ahead of you and that kind of thing. And so I think that would be a really cool sort of relatively easy game to make. That doesn't require a lot of sort of advanced features or a lot of features that we don't already have. So it doesn't require like any networking. It doesn't require physics, which we don't have yet. But most of what we do have is already in place for what we'd need for this. So I think expanding on this idea would be really neat, and that's kind of what we're doing tonight. So I hope that makes sense to everybody. So definitely welcome raiders. All right, let's see. Just make a clone of that as your first test game. Yeah, I mean it's pretty much going to be. It's going to start off as this. I have some ideas in terms of ways that we could expand on it too. So one thing that I thought would be kind of neat is if we have, if we build something like this, we also have another level of that. Maybe that comes up later, where you have a ship that you fly, and you can also have not only the lanes that you have horizontally, but you also have vertical lanes where you can pick up power-ups and dodge stuff and fight things not only side to side but also up and down in later levels. And I think that might be something that adds a little bit of something that a lot of these games don't actually have. Sounds fun. Or like everyone and their mothers make a Minecraft clone. Yeah, no thanks. Do you have a plan for what style of networking you want to implement? I don't actually. I mean, it's got to be fairly generic though when I do it, right? It's got to support pretty much any type of networking, right? Within reason. All right. Me and Mr. Mustard, you dropped a demo last week. Link it. And if for some reason the bot doesn't like it, throw it up on Discord and I'll link it in chat. Yeah, so I kind of really like this idea, right? And I mean, it doesn't even necessarily have to be as fancy as like the remake version of this, right? We'll make it look better than this, right? But it doesn't really have to be super fancy either. Let's see. Oh no, Spiro, what are you up to? Good to see you, by the way. I'm excited for what Unreal has in store with Iris to get rid of the anti-patterns with their networking. I haven't read up on that. I need to one of these days. Worked great for Unreal Tournament, but it falls flat on its face for open world games. Yeah. I remember thinking when Lineage 2 came out, which was based on the Unreal Engine, I was really surprised that they made an MMO using that engine. Very surprised. Bot didn't like it. Okay. If you drop that on Discord, I will link it on here. Let's see. Put it in Project Progress. And then I'll pick it up from there. Oh, you're not on the Discord? Okay. Can you like put it just the title of it without a link, or does it need the link? All right. Anyway, let's get started. I think this is the idea we're going to go with. I really like this idea. That's definitely the winner. So I am going to start a new document. All right, so I'm going to move this down here. And we're just going to call it the Bike Endless Driver game high concept, right? And so all this is going to be is basically it's going to be like a very super, super high level concept of the game. So we're going to say, basically in like 1 or 2 paragraphs, what we want to do here. So let's see, how would we describe this? So I guess an endless runner style game, where the player pilots a vehicle, i.e. motorcycle. Wow, I can't type cycle tonight apparently. Spaceship, etc. And travels along a road / path that has obstacles to avoid and enemies to engage in combat with. And so the player will have various types of vehicles, each having different abilities. We'll leave it at that for now. In various environments with their own challenges. Difficulty will increase as the game goes on. Let's see. Skyship thing can have a level with thunderclouds everywhere, and you can't go into the clouds, otherwise you get zapped. Good showcase of lighting with thunder. So let's, I'm going to put down here just like bullet points of like random ideas like that, right? Just to kind of get them written down. Right? So maybe a level where the player pilots a ship through the sky and has to avoid clouds to not get struck by lightning. That's not a bad idea at all. This game with a cyberpunk neon punk game, the theme would be sick. Ooh. Yeah, okay, so let's we should probably talk about style, right? So there's a few ways we could go with that. Cyberpunk, neon punk. That would be really cool, right? So futuristic, with lots of, I guess, neon lighting. Neon lighting tech, etc. I guess we could put for now. So that might be a cool theme to explore. Lots of different lighting styles. Yeah, and I mean we could even do something like we could go the complete opposite direction, right? We could also do like a steampunk style, which might be interesting too. And nothing says that we have to stick to one style throughout the entire game, right? We could have one level that's cyberpunk and then one level that's steampunk. Right? Nice way to showcase submissive materials. Yeah, I agree. Which we don't have, but we can put in very easily. Something like Tron, yeah. Let's see. Unfairy Tales is the title of your game. Okay, let me... Is it on like itch? Or is it on Steam? Let's see. It's on itch. Is this it? Is that the right one? Cool. All right. Yeah, I don't mind dropping a link for that. Whoops. Okay. Why have we done this to my URL? Let me refresh this. I hate when Firefox does that. All right, so let me drop a link here. This is Mean Mr. Mustard's demo that he released. So if you guys are interested in that, go check that out. I'm not going to be able to do it on stream, but I will check it out for sure. I'll save that for now, so I have it bookmarked. Okay. So, steampunk is my beloved style. Yeah. So that might be kind of a cool thing to like go back and forth between, right? And you could even have like a, we could even do crazy stuff too, like, have different styles of rendering per level if we wanted to go nuts with it, right? Like maybe a toon shaded level or something like that too. Florida man throwing crocodiles on the road and you have to avoid them. You know what? And they also wiggle. So they can change lanes as you're like approaching them so they can bite you. I don't hate the idea. I don't hate the idea at all. You know, we can have a little bit of fun with it, right? Because it's not something that we're taking super seriously. Let's see. Ooh, a hoverboard. That's an interesting idea too. So, let's see, a hoverboard. Glider slash using a neon sword. That's kind of cool too. Robot enemies. Yeah, that's kind of cool. I like that idea. Okay, so let's put here later levels may also have vertical tracks the player can switch to when using a flying vehicle. Ooh, I just had another thought. About replayability. So, what if the vehicle isn't necessarily tied to the level, right? You can use any vehicle that you have access to for a specific level. So like the very first level that you get, maybe you start on a hoverboard, right? And then so you can just, you know, do that level as is. But let's say later on, way later in the game, you get a flying ship or a jetpack, right? And you replay that same level with that. You're not just bound to that ground floor. Now you could actually like go up and see stuff that you couldn't see before when you didn't have the vehicle to actually go up. So it actually makes some of the earlier levels replayable at a later point in the game and adds a little bit of exploration without a whole lot of extra work. Basically no extra work, actually. Is it going to be PvP? No. There's not going to be any networking. Yeah, I don't want any networking in it. It just complicates matters. Speedrun game. Speedrun game would require a leaderboard. And the only problem with leaderboards is cheaters can ruin it, right? And it's like, how much anti-cheat do I want to build in? So I don't know about that. Tammin, you're actually onto something there. So let me, okay. So vehicles are not tied to a level. You can use any vehicle for any level, assuming it is capable of traversing said level. i.e., you can't use a hoverboard on a water level. So vehicle ideas, right? So we have, I realize this is a little disorganized. We can clean it up later. So hoverboard, right? We have hoverboard, motorcycle. Submarine is what Tammin mentioned. Can go along water surface and below, right? We would also have just a standard boat, water surface only, right? A hoverboard, technically speaking, let's say motorcycle, right? So a hoverboard technically could go over land or water surface, right? Because it hovers, right? Does not fly or dive. Motorcycle is land only. Boat is water surface only. Submarine can go along water surface and below. Then we could have like spaceship, right? Slash plane. And so this has to be above surface only. Right, and so we can have this concept of, there can be a concept of an early level let me see, how do I want to word this? For example, the first level would initially be traversed with, say, the hoverboard. But if the player returns there upon getting the spaceship, there can be extra content in above tracks that the player could not previously see without the proper vehicle. Same goes for underwater, right? So that could be like an interesting thing that we could have for replayability, right? You could get some secret stuff that way. All right, let me catch up with chat here. Maybe you start as a paper boy or something and you kick old people and kids on your way. Kick the mafia boss's son at the end of level 1 and his gang is after you. Upgrade steel to various vehicles underway. So what would this be, a Grand Theft Runner? Thinking from the perspective of what is the goal, do it fast, actually being able to complete a level. What will the challenge be? Yeah, so the challenge would probably be, I'm thinking, you would have different times that you would complete the level in. So like each level would have maybe a bronze, a silver, and a gold level. And depending on how fast you complete the level or how thorough you are in defeating enemies and that kind of thing, depending on what the criteria of the level is, it might not necessarily always be the same thing. You could get one of those, a bronze, a silver, or a gold piece. And then maybe those things, or maybe it's just currency that you get, right? Instead of a rating, maybe you get currency, and you use that currency to buy better vehicles and or upgrade ones. Roylet, how's it going? Good to see you. Welcome. You have a mental association of hoverboards to Ross Scott now. That's fair. Could have the balloons approach where you can add difficulty for completion. I'll admit I have not played balloons. Why are my bookmark folders named in Japanese? Because I'm teaching myself Japanese. So it's just like an immersion thing. Yeah. Yeah, and it just, the more I read it, the better it is. So the idea is you have a normal level, and then you could add saw blades to the level. Good luck with that. I hear it's a bit tricky. Tricky? Yeah, I mean, it is a little bit tricky, but I can understand way more than I can speak, I'll put it that way. Which is what my goal is anyways. Anybody can parrot something in another language, it's understanding the response that's important. So I did well enough to get around Japan back in 2017 without too much issue. So you get some currency for completing this harder version of the map, and it creates more variation with little development. So I guess I'm going to have to play balloons to see what you mean. So you add challenges to the level. So instead of upgrading your ship, you add a difficulty to the level. Interesting. And then for completing the level, you get like a point multiplier or something. That's interesting. Okay, I'm going to put that down here. So ability to add extra challenge difficulty to levels in exchange for better reward currency, which we don't know what that is yet. But that's an interesting idea. Starting an EDX computer science course, and I'm really not convinced I can't learn anything in programming. I don't know if it's because I'm discouraged or just sure I can't do it. Can you resume me how it works, and if you found it difficult from your perspective? Sorry for my long message and my English. You mean to learn programming. Okay. So if I understand what you're saying correctly, you're not convinced that you're going to be able to learn how to program. And you're starting a computer science course and you're worried about that. Yeah, okay. So I'll tell you this. I do feel within reason most people can learn to program. I don't think that most people will be good at it, but I think that's okay because that's a relative term, right? So, if everybody's good at it, then good just becomes average, right? So you don't necessarily have to be top of the class in order to be successful in this industry. All you have to do is basically just focus and learn as much as you can and learn how to learn. And what I mean by that is learn how to look up stuff, learn how to read error messages, and learn how to research what the fix is for those error messages, right? Learning how to learn this stuff on your own as opposed to having to have somebody teach you is the most invaluable skill that you can have as a developer, because you're eventually going to get to the point where there's not really too many people that you can ask questions to, and you're going to have to figure stuff out on your own. And I honestly do believe that is a skill that's learned, that anybody can learn. And that's definitely something that you should probably focus on. That being said, depending on what kind of programming you're going to do, depends on what language you should learn. The single thing that I tell people the most that want to get good at programming, you can sit there and you can read tutorials, you can sit there and you can read theory all day long, you can read about design patterns, all this other stuff, right? None of that matters if you don't actually sit down and write code, right? So the single most important thing that you have to do is write code. And don't be afraid to throw your code out and write it again. And just program, right? Just write programs, just write stuff. Even if you write the same program, 10 times, but you completely wipe it out and redo it from scratch every single time. Just you doing that and practicing it over and over and over again is going to solidify that in your mind. And that's going to be far more valuable than any amount of reading that you'll ever do. That doesn't mean to say don't do research, don't read up on it, don't read best practices. That's not what I mean. But, don't get stuck in like a tutorial hell where you're just like going from tutorial to tutorial to tutorial and you're not really doing things on your own. Just write code. That's the only way to get better at it, right? You can't, there are no shortcuts, right? You just have to buckle down and just do it. Depending on what you're working on, programming can be 90% debugging skills. That is true. Yeah. So, writing code is an important part of it, obviously, but it's not the only part. And that's where that first bit that I was talking about learning how to learn and learning how to look up resources and stuff like that, and answers to your questions, and how to do that kind of stuff is the second most valuable thing, I would say. So I hope that makes sense. Knowledge is greater than intelligence for programming. 100%. Yes. Yeah. So don't, and also comparison is the thief of all joy, right? So don't compare yourself to others. Don't do it, right? Because you're always going to be able to find somebody that's smarter than you. And that's not a bad thing, right? And it's okay if you use that as motivation, but don't let it demotivate you. Don't look at like John Carmack and be like, well, I'm never going to be that smart, so I'm just not going to learn it. Like, don't do that to yourself, Just do your thing and keep at it, and you'll get there. We all do. A lot of people in this chat have done the same thing. Okay, so I hope that helps. So for example, in Bloons, you have the normal map, but then you can give yourself a handicap to earn monkey bucks to get like a global upgrade. Okay, so it starts off simple, like you have less life, and yeah, okay, I gotcha. That is, that's what I was thinking you meant by that. So, I guess we could put example, less life, less damage dealt, more damage taken, and then I guess extra hazards, etc. Yeah, so that makes sense. No, don't worry about the wall of text. It's all good. Thank you for your time. Yeah, no worries. I hope that helped. I hope it made sense. Made you more comfortable with it. That's good. Okay, I'm glad. Yeah, I mean, you'll get there. For sure. Just keep at it and you will eventually get there. Let's see. Another example is Hades heat stuff. Thank you for the follow, by the way. Give news of my progress if you want. Yeah, do it. Definitely. I'll keep an ear out. Okay, so Hades heat stuff. What do you mean by Hades heat stuff? I'm not familiar with what that means. Makes games very replayable. Okay. So what is the project? So the project that we're working on right now is we're actually coming up with the idea for the first game that we're going to publish using the game engine that we've been building. So we've been building this game engine here, which is called the Kohi engine. We've been building that from scratch, rather, in C using Vulkan. And it's a free and open source engine that we've been building from the ground up. And now we're talking about ideas to make our first game for it. So we're kind of roughing some stuff out here, trying to get some ideas, and then we're going to turn this into a game document that's going to contain basically all the different things that we need to put together for a feature list and stuff like that. So let me take a look at... Okay. Thank you for the link, and I will read through that. And because that's a lot of text, I don't think I can read that right now. But yeah, I will read through it and probably we'll mention it on the next stream. But thank you for that, Diamond. Appreciate it. Suggest you don't throw away your first projects. This way you can compare in the future and see the progress you have done. That's a fair point. Yeah. Parts of me wish that when I started programming in QBasic, which most of you probably don't even know what that is. But it was on MS-DOS, right? And I kind of wish that I kept some of those projects. So that's a good point. Lemon Loss, how's it going? Never understood how you can create a game engine with code and then code in it. Yeah, it's a long process, we'll put it that way. I've been working on this game engine, the game engine that we see here. I've been working on this for about 3 years. So it's not for the faint of heart. I will say, though, I'm only doing it part-time, though. It's not full-time development. Actually, it's not even really part-time. It's a little bit less than that. If it were full-time hours, I would say it's probably 6 to 8 months worth of development. Bootstrapping a compiler is fun? Yes, it is. When will you start building the game? So that's solely going to depend on the feature list that comes out of this. We do have a couple of things that we need to take care of in terms of the engine itself. Let me pull up the to-do list. right? So this is actually the to-do list that I have for the game engine. And so we actually need to finish our resource reworks, which includes all these types. Textures is probably going to be the most complicated ones. A lot of these other ones will just drop into place after that. There's a couple of minor items that we need to do here for our next release. And this looks like a lot of stuff, but like we could probably realistically build the game without a lot of this. And let's see, I don't know, we might not even have to do the 0.9 stuff. I don't even think we need to do this. So realistically, I'm thinking this list plus any features that we come up with that we need for the game would have to be done before we can start the game. So we're looking at least probably a few months out, which is one of the reasons that I'm trying to keep the scope on this as limited as possible. And I think this particular idea is going to play into that pretty nicely. So many lines you don't understand anything. Yeah, I mean, all this isn't even code, right? This is just a list of stuff, right? So all of these that are marked with an X are done. The ones with a space in them are not done. And so there's, a lot of things here that we have to do. But a lot of these things, like when I knock one out, a couple of them are going to get knocked out. So this is basically a list of all the features and bug fixes and stuff that that are planned for the next release, which is the 8.0 release. And then this is the stuff I have planned for the 0.9 release. And I've even got something in here for 0.10. But I don't think we're going to need... I don't think we're going to need even 0.9 stuff to actually make the game. I think we can make the game on 0.8 when it's done. So, let's see. Give me 4 months and I'll come back with more vocabulary. That's fair. Do you code in C for your job? My day job? No, I do not. Did I see occlusion queries on the list? Occlusion queries is somewhere on the list. I don't know that I think that was... Oh, I guess oh, yeah, I did put it in 0.8. I don't know that I'm actually going to that might actually get kicked out, though. I don't think we're going to need it for this. And in fact, I don't even think we're actually going to need any of this, to be honest. I don't think we're going to need it. Things are fast enough now that the only reason that our frame rate tanks right now is because we have Vulkan validation layers on. Once we turn those things off and we get rid of all the duplicate copies of geometry we have in there, that's sort of our test bed is doing. It's going to run a lot faster. The game will be a 3D game, yes. What type of game is it? Action? It's basically going to be an endless runner / action combat, I guess you could say. So it's basically going to be kind of like this Road Rash game, right? This old school Road Rash game, or the Final Fantasy VII, motorcycle mini game that was in there, where you have to sort of club guys on motorcycles and stuff. But it's going to be like a more advanced version of that. Let's see. We catch up on chats over here. Okay, so one idea was a jetpack for a vehicle, which I guess the jetpack I suppose would be like here, right? And that would be land, water, surface, and flying, right? And I think that's probably enough in terms of vehicles. Um, and then, maybe some of these could have like upgrades or power ups or whatever. We can get into that once we start writing the game design document. Again, this is supposed to be super, super high level. So let's see. So the high concept itself is basically this, right? This is actually more like game design document specifics. I just wanted to write them down because you guys were like banging out ideas pretty quick, which was really good. Road Rash was awesome. Yes, I love the hell out of this game. I played the crap out of it when I was a kid. It was great. Updated the Vulkan renderer backend of a company I'm consulting work for entirely bindless and Vulkan 1.2. Managed to find a group of features that are guaranteed core 1.2 and work on integrated mobile GPUs. Really? I might have to ping you about that at some point. Because that's one of the reasons I hadn't gone bindless, was because of support. But if that's changing... You're going to make a voxel adventure game? That sounds fun. It sounds complicated for a first project, though, I'm not going to lie. Remember Cube World. Cube World. Can't say that I do. You do need Vulkan 1.2. That, unfortunately, is a must. And you do need to get some obscure GLSL extensions. Okay. That's not terrible, though. I mean, 1.2 is pretty common. And I feel like for mobile, if you're not going to support... If you're on a device that doesn't support 1.2, like, just use OpenGL. Like buffer reference, UVec 2. Okay. I'm not familiar with that one. No, I haven't had to use it, but interesting. Okay. Okay. Let's see. You know how many games until 2010 or so have this level where you fall or shoot forwards and theoretically you're in a tunnel. What you do is avoid obstacles. That's more or less what we're building, yeah. Speedrun doesn't require leaderboards. Just do a Doom style with a timer and you can play it back. Playback is not a bad idea, actually. As like an additional feature. I don't hate that idea. I'll put it with a question mark. Do what everyone hates, a quick time event. Just for the mechanism. Yeah, you mean like where you have to complete it in X number of seconds or something like that? That's always super annoying. I hate that mechanic. I hate that mechanic enough to where I don't think I could justify actually making it. It's already 4:30 a.m. where I live. I think we'll go to sleep and watch the rest of the VOD. Alright, I appreciate it. Have a good one. And yeah, no problem, me and Mr. Mustard. Of course. You're here all the time. It's the least I can do. Alright, in a cutscene somewhere, again, for the mechanic of it. So, I don't think cutscenes really... I mean, if I were to do a cutscene here, it would probably be like... like a stop motion or like a comic panel type of cutscene. I can't see making a whole cutscene system for this game. It just wouldn't fit. I think that would be, because cutscene systems are actually fairly complicated. Mainly like the tooling around that is kind of complicated. So I don't know that I'd necessarily want to do that. Read once that the reason why 1.3 is not core on mobile was some stupid feature that is not relevant and is not fully supported on tiled GPUs. That wouldn't surprise me at all. Not in the slightest. Alright, okay. So I guess, just looking at this, I think this is enough for a high concept right now, right? I guess what we could do, we could grab a couple of sample images, right? Example images, right? And these are just, obviously we're not going to copy this exactly, right? We're not going to copy it at all. We just want to use this as reference, right? So I guess we'll call it reference. Reference images, right? Road Rash 3D. That's when 3D was so new that they put 3D in the title of games. Let's see, this is probably, whoops, I didn't want to actually click into that. Let's copy this image. And we'll put this in here. Final Fantasy VII. Original. Motorcycle minigame. I guess we could use like something like is there any actually decent examples in here of like what we could use? I don't think so. I mean, we're probably not going to have as much fanciness, obviously, as they did in this game, but, like, the idea is there. Let's see. But as the feature is part of the 1.3 spec, it automatically makes mobile GPUs non-compliant. I would say mobile GPUs are almost always non-compliant across the board. Annoyingly. It's 4:52 a.m. for me and going to sleep too. All right, have a good one. Definitely come back when I have time. Cool. We'll see you next time. Thanks for stopping by and the conversation. Do you have drawing skills for concept art and stuff? I do, actually. I have like a whole stack of sketchbooks in there. I'm a bit out of practice, but yeah, I actually went to school. I went to art school growing up. So I have training in traditional media. So drawing, painting, sculpting, stuff like that. And I actually went to college for game art and design. Not programming, oddly enough. But yeah, I do have background in that stuff, so I can do it. Fortunately, supporting mobile and integrated GPUs is a whole can of worms. That's why I decided to drop support for it temporarily. I'm going to be writing, when I go to do a Vulkan backend for it, I'm going to write a completely custom one for mobile. Just because of that. Can get really hairy if you want to do something modern. Exactly. Hopefully making some of these extensions Core 1.3 will prompt manufacturers to actually push the boundary of current tiled GPUs support. That's my hope, at least. See, the issue I have, though, is even if they do that, right, and even if that's what becomes standard, you still have all these devices out there that aren't that way currently. And until that stuff drops off the market, you still have to support it, right? Because a major market share is that stuff, especially overseas, right? So I know from previous experience, there's lots of devices in China and India, are two examples that immediately come to mind of devices that use older chipsets or chipsets that aren't necessarily capable of what we'd call modern graphics pipelines. So, yeah, that's super annoying. Aiming for higher or lower poly? Low poly for sure. 100% low poly. Just because I'm not a high poly modeler. When I learned to model and animate, was just past this period of games. It was like the PS2 era is where I learned for that stuff. So that's what I'm most comfortable with. That's probably what we're going to roll with. Looking forward to seeing it. Awesome. Gosh, I'm tired of writing everything wrong today. Pfft, story of my life, brother. Since I've been trying to learn more about SIMD, SOA, and arenas, how does Kohi handle those? It doesn't at the moment. It's on a to-do list. It doesn't handle it at all. That is something we need to do. But things run fast enough right now that SIMD is not like the bottleneck, right? So it is on the to-do list. It is something that we have to handle. But like those things are definitely not where the bottlenecks are at the moment. So low poly is also just nostalgic. Yeah, exactly. Like I actually, believe it or not, I miss this sort of PS1 era of graphics with the weird incorrect texture projection that sort of got a little bit wobbly. I kind of miss that. I just like the way it looked, but things that are super important in modern graphics are completely left out, like array of textures in the shader. Yep. Not texture arrays, but textures array. Yeah. Yeah, that is absurd to me too. I just and Kohi can't work without it now, right? Because we have features that actually use that stuff. So let's see. What you're talking about is exactly my problem with web GPU design. They aren't modeling things around desktop GPUs. They're making a objectively worse API, which is 4 to 5 year old features, just because they want to make mobile devices have full support. Yeah, and that was the issue with WebGL. And if you look at web GPU, it's basically metal, right? It's a lot closer to metal than it is Vulkan, actually. But yeah, it's I mean, WebGL came out in what, like, I want to say it was like 2011 is when it became like widely supported, somewhere around there. And that was like the equivalent of that was what, OpenGL ES2. So yeah, it's web stuff is always going to be behind in that regard. Any favorite books for learning rendering techniques? PBR book, yeah. Also the real-time rendering. This chunker here. I'm not going to try and put that back properly right now. Around 2010? Okay, I was close, yeah. Back when you also had to make it work on Internet Exploder. Have a really soft spot for middle era 3D Gorod shading. Yeah, I'm the same way. Like I love some of those old rendering techniques. It's not because they look good, but probably because it's just, you know, rose-colored glasses. Real-time rendering, the GOAT. Yep. Your age is showing again. Yes. But see, Spiro is the ripe old age of 40. I'm not there yet. Not yet. I am, well, okay. I mean, I'm just over a year away from that, actually. Past ripe. Yeah. Yeah, because I turn 39 next Friday, actually. So, close. We'll try that one and the PBR. Awesome. Road with continuous changing tilt or just straight flat road? Oh, we can do tilt. We can do assuming it doesn't make the player nauseous, and we'll have to play test this, but I don't see a reason we couldn't do like loops even, you know? Are you planning to make it a C# for development GUI for the editor? Nope. So our editor is going to be written in C, and extensions for that editor are all going to be written in C. we will eventually support scripting languages as extensions, but our core components and our core editor components will not support those. So if you wanted to write an editor extension, you'd have to write it in C. And that's because I just don't want the overhead of all that stuff being included. Like I'm not going to include a scripting language by default in the engine. Just because we could do what we need to do in C. If we want a scripting language, that'll be a plugin. And I assume at some point maybe we'll write that plugin, but it's not going to be part of the core of the engine because I won't use it. You know what scares the crap out of me more and more? I would like to deviate from your way and implement different things for my purposes, but this means I truly need to understand the whole thing. Yep, I get that, but feel free to deviate, right? That's the whole idea behind this, is to make it, to give you a starting point, right? So I expect you guys to deviate from what I'm doing. Understandable, you're going to make visual scripting then. Maybe at some point, but again, as a plugin. Yeah. So the idea here is that the problem with scripting languages and visual scripting languages is they're never going to be able to generate code that is as concise and performant as just writing the code by hand. There's always going to be overhead associated with that. Which is definitely suboptimal, for sure. JavaScript in the rendering pipeline. Ouch. That hurt to even say. That hurt. Scripting languages, burn it before it spreads. Yeah, exactly. I don't... That's what I'm saying. Like, the core engine will never support that. Transpile JavaScript to shader code. I might actually do a C transpiler at some point to shader code, but Spiro. That's intense, dude. Yeah, I was gonna say you might need to see somebody about that. All right. Let's see. Would like to make games in your engine, but I gotta learn C. I only know C# partially. Yeah, so C is actually a simpler language than C#, I would argue. The only thing you have to wrap your head around is pointers, but pointers really aren't that hard. Once you understand what they are, which is literally a pointer is just an address in memory. That's it. That's all a pointer is, right? But once you understand dereferencing pointers and stuff like that, like C is so much simpler than C#. It's not even funny. So, but anyway, I think... So we made some pretty good progress with this tonight. We actually got further than I thought we were going to, which is awesome. So I'm going to think about this offline for a little bit, see if I can't come up with maybe a couple of ideas for a name, although we don't necessarily have to have one. And then next time I think we might actually jump into starting to bang out a game design document, right? Which will help us figure out what features we need to add to the engine. Which I'm sure we'll have, just a relatively small list. Looking at this, I don't think it's going to be a huge list of things we're going to have to add to support all these features. I really don't think it's going to be that much at all. And I think we might even be able to get away without an animation system, like without a full-blown skeletal animation system. We might even be able to get away without that. So we'll see. But with that said, we are basically out of time for tonight because I do have to get up in the morning. Let's see. Hero Dev did some transpiling work. Looks like a fun project. Yeah, so I'm a big fan of his, actually. Henry does some pretty friggin' awesome stuff with his stream. Definitely a cool dude to follow. Let's see. You wrote a JSON parser for Casey Muratori's course. Nice. Yeah, Henry's super cool. He's a cool dude. 3 gig file in 2 seconds to form an abstract syntax tree. Nice. All right, so it's such a wild statement that I want to disagree, but with the state of C sharp, yeah. See, you might think that C sharp is a simpler language, but it isn't. Especially especially modern versions of C sharp, it's gotten so complex. It's no longer simpler than C. I don't know if it ever was, but it definitely isn't now. I think I'll hit 100k coffees during the development of the game. What are you up to, by the way, Taman? How many are you up to? $92,800. Yeah, you're gonna hit that in no time, for sure. All right. So with that, that is where I'm going to end the stream for tonight. Thank you guys for being here. Let me choose somebody to raid. Let's see. Let's go with... All right, let's go with this one. This is a Godot developer on Linux. So let's check out this stream. I haven't rated this person yet, but we'll go ahead and start rating them. And yeah, let's just go in there and just ask them what they're working on. And I'm gonna have to raid and run because I have to get working in the morning. I got to get up early for that, but yeah, thank you guys so much for being here. I really appreciate you guys, and we'll see you guys in the next stream. I'm gonna go ahead and hit the raid button now. So, see you guys.